When you think of terrible fathers in Star Wars, your mind probably goes straight to Darth Vader. The guy who chopped off his son's hand and tried to turn him to the dark side. But today, I'm going to blow your mind, because Vader isn't even close to being the most evil father in the galaxy. The father I'm talking about makes Vader look like a saint. He's responsible for more death, more suffering, and more galactic-scale horror than any other paternal figure in Star Wars history. And the worst part? Most fans don't even realize how truly monstrous he is. I'm talking about Emperor Sheev Palpatine. And no, I don't mean as a father figure to the Empire. I mean as an actual, literal father. Now, before you click away thinking this is some wild fan theory, let me stop you right there. This isn't speculation, this is canon. Emperor Palpatine had a son, and that son's story is one of the most tragic and horrifying tales in all of Star Wars. The sequel trilogy revealed that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter, which means somewhere in the timeline, the Emperor had a child. But here's where it gets really dark, and where most people miss the full horror of what actually happened. Palpatine's son wasn't just some random offspring he abandoned. This was a deliberate, calculated creation, designed to serve the Emperor's ultimate goals. And when that son dared to defy him, Palpatine's response was so brutal, so utterly without mercy, that it makes Vader's treatment of Luke look like a gentle disagreement. Let's dive into the timeline. We know, from the rise of Skywalker, that Rey's father was Palpatine's son, a failed clone, who chose love and family over power. But that simple description doesn't even scratch the surface of the nightmare this man lived through. First, let's talk about how Palpatine's son came to exist, because this isn't your typical father-son relationship. This wasn't a case of Palpatine meeting someone, falling in love and having a child. No, this was far more sinister. Palpatine was experimenting with cloning technology, trying to create the perfect vessel for his consciousness. His son wasn't born out of love, he was manufactured as a potential backup body. Think about that for a moment. Your entire existence predicated on the idea that you might one day be sacrificed so your father can live forever. But here's where it gets even more twisted. The son was deemed a failed clone, not because he was defective, but because he showed something. Palpatine couldn't tolerate independent will. He had the audacity to want his own life, his own choices, his own family. Most parents would be proud of a child who shows independence and moral courage. Palpatine? He saw it as a failure of design. This tells us everything we need to know about how he viewed his own offspring. Not as a person, not even as a son, but as a defective product that didn't meet specifications. So, what did this failed clone do that was so terrible? He fell in love, he got married, he had a daughter. He tried to live a normal, peaceful life away from his father's empire of evil. Can you imagine the courage that must have taken? Growing up, knowing you were created to be your father's vessel, knowing the kind of power and evil he represented, and still choosing to walk away, choosing love over power, family over domination. This man, and we never even learn his real name, which is its own tragedy, represents everything good that can exist in a person. He had every reason to embrace the dark side. He was literally created from the essence of the most evil being in the galaxy. But he chose differently. And how did Palpatine respond to his son's choice? Did he respect his decision? Did he show even a shred of paternal understanding? Did he at least leave him alone to live his quiet life? He had him murdered, not just killed, hunted down and murdered, along with his wife, leaving their daughter orphaned and alone. Let's break down exactly what happened, because the details make this even more horrifying. Palpatine didn't just order a quick assassination. He sent Sith assassins to track down his own son and daughter-in-law. He turned their lives into a nightmare of constant fear and running. Picture this, you're trying to raise a young daughter while constantly looking over your shoulder, knowing that the most powerful man in the galaxy wants you dead. Not because you've done anything evil, not because you're a threat to anyone, but because you dared to choose love over serving your father's ambitions. The son and his wife were forced to live as scavengers, hiding on backwater planets, always moving, never safe. They couldn't build a real home, couldn't give their daughter stability, couldn't even use their real names. All because Palpatine couldn't tolerate the idea that his offspring might choose to be good. And when the assassins finally caught up with them, the son made the ultimate sacrifice. He gave up the location of his daughter, his own child, to save her from a worse fate. He chose to die rather than reveal Rey's whereabouts, knowing that Palpatine would never stop hunting her. Think about that moment, a father faced with torture and death, protecting his daughter with his last breath. Meanwhile, his own father, Rey's grandfather, is orchestrating the entire nightmare. But Palpatine's evil as a father doesn't end with murder. After having his son killed, he abandons his granddaughter on Jakku. Not out of mercy, not because he doesn't know where she is, but as part of a larger plan. Rey spends years believing her parents abandoned her, that they chose to sell her for drinking money and never came back. She lives with that pain, that sense of abandonment and worthlessness, not knowing that her grandfather, her own family, was responsible for her orphaning. Palpatine let her suffer on a desert planet, scrapping for survival, believing she was unwanted and unloved. He could have ended her suffering at any time, but instead he let her pain fester and grow, shaping her into someone desperate for belonging and family. And why? Because he was planning to use that pain against her. He wanted her to feel abandoned and desperate, so that, when he finally revealed himself, she'd be more likely to turn to him for the family connection she'd always craved. That's not just evil, that's psychological torture on a generational scale. He murdered her parents, abandoned her to suffering, and then planned to use her resulting trauma to manipulate her into serving him. When Palpatine finally reveals himself to Rey, he doesn't show remorse. He doesn't apologize for the decades of pain he's caused. Instead, he tries to manipulate her into killing him so his spirit can possess her body. This is a grandfather asking his granddaughter to commit suicide so he can steal her body. After everything he's put her through, after murdering her parents and abandoning her to a life of suffering, his final act is to try to trick her into destroying herself for his benefit. Compare this to Darth Vader's relationship with Luke. Yes, Vader was terrible. He cut off Luke's hand, he tortured Han Solo, he served an evil empire. But when push came to shove, when faced with the choice between his master and his son, Vader chose Luke. He found redemption through love. Palpatine? He never once chose his family over his own ambitions. Not his son. Not his granddaughter. Every single interaction he had with his family was designed to serve his own interests, no matter how much pain it caused them. Let's put this in perspective with other terrible fathers in Star Wars. Darth Vader tortured his son, but ultimately saved him. Jango Fett was a bounty hunter and killer, but genuinely loved Boba. Even characters like Galen Erso, who worked on the Death Star, did everything they could to protect their children. Palpatine is the only father in Star Wars who consistently, deliberately, chose to cause maximum suffering to his own family for his personal gain. He created a son as a potential sacrifice, murdered him when he showed independence, abandoned his granddaughter to psychological torture, and then tried to manipulate her into self-destruction. There's no redemption arc here. There's no moment where he shows even a flicker of genuine care or remorse. He is evil in its purest form. A father who sees his own family, not as people to love and protect, but as tools to be used and discarded. So, the next time someone talks about Darth Vader being the worst father in Star Wars, remind them of this story. Remind them of the unnamed son who died protecting his daughter from his own father. Remind them of Rey, who suffered for decades because her grandfather valued power more than family. Emperor Palpatine isn't just the most evil father. In Star Wars, he's one of the most evil fathers in all of fiction. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize the full scope of his paternal crimes. What do you think? Does this change how you view Palpatine's character? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the galaxy far, far away.